The morning sun painted the fields of New Eden in golden light as Jake Morrison walked between the rows of corn. His boots made soft sounds in the dirt as he checked each plant for signs of disease or pest damage. The work was simple and peaceful, exactly what he wanted after so many years of chaos and violence. He had been farming for 5 years now, and the local people knew him as a quiet man who kept to himself and grew the best vegetables in 3 counties. Jake stopped at a section where the corn looked healthier than the rest. He smiled slightly, remembering how he had modified the soil mixture using knowledge he picked up from a Zephyrian agricultural specialist he once knew. Of course, he had met that specialist while infiltrating a space station to eliminate a crime boss, but the farming tips had been useful. These days, Jake tried not to think about his past life too much. The sound of a vehicle approaching made Jake look up from his work. A small hover car was coming down the dirt road that led to his farm. Visitors were rare out here, and Jake felt his old instincts kick in automatically. His hand moved slightly toward the knife on his belt before he caught himself enforced his body to relax. He was just a farmer now, not the person he used to be. The hover car stopped near his farmhouse, and a young woman got out. She had brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and carried a small recording device. Jake could tell she was nervous, but trying to hide it. She walked toward him with the careful steps of someone who was not used to farm work. "Mr. Morrison," she called out, "my name is Lisa Carter. I'm a journalist working on a story about missing persons from the war years. I was hoping you might have a few minutes to talk." Jake felt ice form in his stomach, but his face showed nothing. Lisa Carter looked to be in her late 20s, too young to remember the worst years of the galactic conflicts. She probably had no idea who she was really talking to. Jake had chosen New Eden specifically because it was far from the main trade, roots and full of people who minded their own business. "I keep to myself, Miss Carter," Jake said in the slow, careful way he had learned to speak since coming here. "Don't know much about missing persons or wars. Just grow food." Lisa pulled out a small tablet and showed him a picture. This man was named Tony Rodriguez. He disappeared 15 years ago after investigating illegal weapon sales to the Crimson Syndicate. His family is still looking for answers. Jake looked at the picture and felt another chill. He remembered Tony Rodriguez very well. The man had been getting too close to discovering who was eliminating witnesses for the Syndicate. Jake had made Rodriguez disappear on a cold night on Kepler Station. It had been quick and clean, like all his work back then. "Never seen him," Jake lied smoothly. "Sorry, I can't help." Lisa nodded, but did not seem ready to give up. "What about?" "During the war. Were you involved in any military operations or government work?" "Nope," Jake said. "Always been a farmer." That was not exactly true. Jake Morrison had indeed always been his real name, but before coming to New Eden, he had been known by a very different title across the galaxy. They called him the Shadow. For 20 years, he had been the most feared assassin in known space. Governments hired him to eliminate enemies. Crime syndicates paid him to remove threats. Anyone with enough credits could make someone disappear permanently. That Jake had been very good at his job. Too good, perhaps. He could infiltrate any facility, eliminate any target, and vanish without leaving a trace. He knew 17 different ways to kill someone with just his hands. He could hack security systems that alien engineers thought were impossible to break. He spoke 14 languages and could blend into almost any crowd. But 5 years ago, something had changed. Jake had completed a job that involved eliminating a corrupt politician who was selling military secrets. After the mission, he had discovered that the politician had a young daughter who was now an orphan. Something about seeing that little girl at the funeral had broken something inside him. He decided he was done with killing Dot, so Jake Morrison had simply vanished. He took his savings, bought this farm on New Eden under his real name, and started growing vegetables. The galaxy thought the shadow had died or retired to some hidden location. They were half right. Well, if you remember anything or if anyone comes around asking questions, here is my contact information, Lisa said, handing him a small card. Jake took the card and watched her walk back to her hovercar. As she drove away, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. There was another vehicle parked on the hill overlooking his farm. It was trying to stay hidden behind some trees, but Jake's trained eyes caught the glint of metal in the sunlight. Jake walked slowly back toward his house, acting casual while his mind raced. The vehicle was too far away to make out details, but its positioning suggested surveillance. After 5 years of peace, had someone finally found him? He thought about Lisa Carter's visit and wondered if it was a coincidence or if her questions had somehow triggered attention from his past. That evening, Jake watched the sunset from his porch while keeping one eye on the hidden vehicle. It had not moved all day. Whoever was watching him was patient and professional. Jake felt familiar feelings stirring inside him, instincts and skills he had tried to bury under 5 years of simple farm work. As darkness fell, Jake made a decision. Tomorrow he would go into town and ask some casual questions. If someone was hunting him, he needed to know who and why. The shadow might be retired, but Jake Morrison was still very much alive, and he was not going to let anyone threaten the peaceful life he had built. Jake woke before dawn and checked the hill through his bedroom window. The vehicle was gone, but that did not make him feel better. Professional hunters did not stay in one place too long. He dressed in his usual farm clothes and walked out to check his animals, but his eyes constantly scanned the surrounding area for signs of movement. The morning was quiet until Jake heard the deep rumble of spacecraft engines overhead. He looked up to see a sleek transport ship landing at the small spaceport near town. The ship had the markings of a Zephyrian trading vessel, but something about its design made Jake suspicious. Real trading ships were built for cargo space and fuel efficiency. This one looked built for speed and maneuverability. Jake decided to drive into town earlier than usual. He loaded his truck with vegetables to sell at the market, but underneath the produce he had hidden a small pistol and a combat knife. He hoped he would not need them, but 20 years of staying alive had taught him to always be prepared. The town of Haven was small and friendly, with about 3,000 people who mostly worked in farming or mining. Jake parked his truck a market square and began setting up his vegetable stand like he did every week. Other farmers greeted him with waves and friendly words. These people had become something like family to him over the past 5 years. "Morning, Jake," called out Pete Henderson, an old man who ran the hardware store. "Heard we got some new visitors in town. Aliens looking to buy mining equipment." Jake kept his expression neutral while his mind raced. "That's so. What kind of aliens?" "Zephyrians," Pete said. "Tall fellows with those bone ridges on their foreheads. Been asking a lot of questions about who lives in the area. Seemed real interested when I mentioned your farm." Jake felt his stomach drop, but he just nodded and continued arranging his vegetables. Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as skilled hunters and assassins. They were not here to buy mining equipment. As the morning progressed, Jake noticed 3 Zephyrians walking through the market. They were trying to look casual, but Jake could see the way they moved, the way their eyes constantly scanned for threats. These were definitely not traders. One of them, a particularly large specimen with ritual scars covering his arms, kept looking in Jake's direction. Around noon, Lisa Carter appeared at Jake's vegetable stand. She looked nervous and kept glancing around as if she thought someone might be following her. "Mr. Morrison," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something important. Have you noticed any strangers around town today?" Few Zephyrian traders, Jake said carefully. Why? Lisa moved closer and lowered her voice. I've been investigating disappearances for months, and everywhere I go, people start dying or vanishing shortly after I leave. I think someone is following my investigation and eliminating anyone who might have information. Jake felt pieces clicking together in his mind. Lisa's questions yesterday, the surveillance vehicle, and now professional alien assassins in town. Someone was using the journalist as bait to draw him out. But who knew he was here? And why were they making a move now? Miss Carter, Jake said slowly, I think you should leave town today. Take a vacation somewhere far away. I can't do that, Lisa said firmly. If people are dying because of my investigation, I need to find out who is responsible and stop them. Before Jake could respond, screams erupted from the other side of the market square. Jake looked over to see Pete Henderson on the ground with one of the Zephyrians standing over him. The alien held a wicked-looking curved blade that dripped with blood. Attention humans, the scarred Zephyrian called out in accented English. We seek the one you call Jake Morrison. Deliver him to us, or more of your people will die. The market square erupted into panic as people ran in all directions. Jake felt something cold and familiar settle over his mind. It was a feeling he had not experienced in 5 years, the calm focus that came when violence was inevitable. Stay behind me, Jake told Lisa, who was staring in shock at Pete's body. We know you are here, Shadow, the Zephyrian continued. The Crimson Syndicate sends greetings from beyond the grave. Our new leader wishes to discuss your retirement. Jake stepped forward, and something in his movement made the panicking crowd unconsciously move away from him. Lisa noticed the change. Immediately, the mild-mannered farmer was gone, replaced by something that moved like a predator. Let me guess, Jake called out. You're Krelthek, the Bone Render. I killed your boss 8 years ago. The scarred Zephyrian smiled, showing teeth. Filed to sharp points, indeed. And today I claim vengeance and a 10 million credit bounty on your head. You just made a big mistake, Jake said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet square. I was retired. I was done with killing, but you hurt innocent people. Jake began walking toward the 3 Zephyrians, and Lisa watched in amazement. As his entire bearing changed, his steps became silent and fluid. His hands moved to positions that suggested years of combat training. Most unsettling of all, his eyes had become completely cold and calculating. You should have left me alone, Jake continued. You should have let me grow vegetables and live in peace. But you had to come here and threaten my neighbors. Krelthek raised his blade and charged. Jake waited until the last second, then moved. With inhuman speed, he sidestepped the alien's attack and struck him in the throat with 2 fingers. Krelthek stumbled and gasped for air. The second Zephyrian tried to shoot Jake with an energy weapon, but Jake had already moved. He rolled behind a market stall and came up with Pete Henderson's dropped toolbox. Jake threw a wrench with perfect accuracy, striking the gunman in the head and dropping him instantly. The third alien tried to run, but Jake was faster. He caught the fleeing Zephyrian and used a combat technique that left the alien unconscious on the ground. The entire fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Lisa stared in shock as Jake stood over the defeated aliens. Who are you? She whispered. Jake looked at her with those cold eyes, and for a moment she was terrified. Then his expression softened slightly. I used to be someone else, Jake said. Someone very dangerous. I thought I could leave that behind, but it seems the past has found me. Krelthek was still alive, but badly injured. He looked up at Jake with a mixture of pain and respect. The stories were true, he gasped. You really are the Shadow. Not anymore, Jake said. I'm just a farmer who wants to be left alone. But even as he said it, Jake knew it was no longer true. By revealing himself to save the townspeople, he had announced to the galaxy that the Shadow was alive and could be found on New Eden. Within hours, every bounty hunter and assassin in known space would know his location. Jake looked around at the frightened faces of his neighbors and felt something break inside his chest. His peaceful life was over. Within 6 hours of the fight in the market square, Jake's farm became the most dangerous place in the galaxy. The surviving Zephyrian had managed to send a message before Jake could stop him, and that message spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire. The Shadow was alive, his location was known, and there was still a massive bounty on his head. Jake had tried to convince Lisa Carter to leave, but the journalist refused to abandon what she called the story of a lifetime. Instead, she helped Jake prepare his farm for the coming storm. They moved supplies into the farmhouse basement and set up basic medical equipment. Jake also showed Lisa how to use the emergency communication system he had installed years ago. "How many do you think will come?" Lisa asked as they reinforced the windows with metal plates. "All of them," Jake replied grimly. "Every bounty hunter, assassin, and mercenary who thinks they can take down the Shadow. Could be hundreds." The first wave arrived at sunset. 3 ships landed in Jake's cornfield, and armed figures began moving through the tall plants toward the farmhouse. Jake watched them through thermal imaging equipment and counted 12 attackers. They were Thurlian berserkers, known for their brutal direct assault tactics. "Stay in the basement," Jake told Lisa. "No matter what you hear, don't come up until I call for you." Jake moved through his house like a ghost, activating defensive systems he had installed but hoped never to use. Pressure plates in the floors, connected to small explosive charges. Motion sensors triggered automated crossbows hidden in the walls. Tripwires released clouds of toxic gas in the hallways. The Thurlians kicked down the front door and charged, inside roaring battle cries. The first 3 stepped on pressure plates and were killed instantly by explosions. The next 2 triggered the automated crossbows and fell with metal bolts in their chests. The remaining 7 made it to the main room before Jake appeared behind. Them like a shadow made flesh. The fight was brutal but brief. Jake moved with deadly precision, using furniture as weapons and the house layout to his advantage. When it was over, all 12 Thurlians were dead, and Jake had only minor cuts on his arms. "You can come up now." Jake called to Lisa. Lisa emerged from the basement looking pale but determined. She stared at the bodies scattered throughout the house, and then at Jake, who was calmly cleaning blood off his hands. "How did you do that?" she asked. "They were bigger and stronger than you. Strength doesn't matter if you know where to hit." Jake explained. "Thurlians are tough, but they have weak points just like everyone else. The key is not fighting their fight. Let them charge and use their momentum against them." Before Lisa could ask more questions, Jake's sensors detected more ships approaching. This time it was a single vessel, but Jake recognized the design. Velkari shadow dancers, aliens who could phase in and out of solid matter for short periods. "These ones are different," Jake warned Lisa. "They can walk through walls. The basement won't protect you." "Then I'm staying up here to document this," Lisa said firmly. Jake didn't have time to argue. The Velkari ship landed, and 5 ghostly figures began moving toward the house. Jake could track them on his sensors until they activated their phasing ability. Then they vanished completely. Jake turned off all the lights and moved through his house using memory and instinct. The Velkari were deadly because they could appear anywhere without warning, but they had one weakness. When they phased through matter, they couldn't see or hear normally. They had to rely on psychic sensing, which Jake had learned to disrupt years ago. Jake controlled his breathing and heartbeat using meditation techniques stolen from a Zen monastery on Kepler Prime. He emptied his mind of all emotion and became as still as a statue. To psychic senses, he would appear to be just another piece of furniture. The first Valkyrie materialized in the kitchen and looked around in confusion. Jake moved silently behind the alien and snapped its neck before it could phase away. The second one appeared in the living room and met a similar fate. The remaining three Valkyrie realized something was wrong and began appearing and disappearing rapidly, trying to confuse Jake with their movement. But Jake had fought their kind before. He threw small metal objects around the room and listened for the tiny sounds they made when they hit phasing aliens. When Jake heard the telltale clink of metal striking something invisible, he moved. His hand found an alien throat in mid-air, and he crushed it before the Valkyrie could fully materialize. The last two tried to escape, but Jake had positioned himself between them and the exit. Impossible, one of the Valkyrie whispered as Jake defeated them both in hand-to-hand combat. How can a solid being fight shadow dancers? I've had a lot of practice, Jake replied. The night continued with wave after wave of attackers. A squad of robotic hunters sent by an Nexari crime family learned that Jake could hack their programming and turn them against each other. A group of Rilithian poison specialists discovered that Jake had made himself immune to their toxins years ago. Each new threat was met and defeated, often in ways that surprised even Lisa. You're not just a good fighter, Lisa observed as Jake cleaned alien blood off his kitchen floor for the third time. You seem to know exactly how to beat each different species. 20 years of study, Jake explained. I made it my business to learn the weaknesses of every major alien race. Knowledge is better than any weapon. As dawn approached, Jake's sensors detected the largest group yet. 15 ships had landed around his property, and more than 100 armed figures were surrounding the farmhouse. Jake recognized the insignia. Painted on the ships, the Krolix death cult had arrived. This is different, Jake told Lisa. The Krolix don't care about bounties or money. They worship death itself, and killing the shadow would make them legendary among their people. Jake looked out at the alien army gathering in his fields and felt something he had not experienced in years. For the first time since his retirement began, Jake Morrison was not sure he could win. Lisa, he said quietly, I want you to know that I never meant for innocent people to get hurt. I came here to escape violence, not bring it to good people. No, Lisa replied. But sometimes the skills we're ashamed of are the same skills that can protect others. Jake nodded and checked his weapons one final time. The Krolix were known for their patience and tactical brilliance. This would not be like the other fights. This would be war. Stay close to me, Jake told Lisa. If we're going to survive this, we need to be smart about it. Outside, the Krolix began their war chants, and the sound echoed across the peaceful farmland of New Eden like the roar of approaching doom. Jake stared out at the Krolix army surrounding his farm and realized that defensive fighting would only get him and Lisa killed. The death cult warriors were too numerous and too well organized to defeat with house traps and close combat. If he wanted to survive this, he needed to become the shadow again completely. Lisa, I need you to do exactly what I say, Jake said as he gathered equipment from hidden caches around his house. There's an old mining tunnel that starts in my basement and comes out 3 miles away in the mountains. I want you to take this communication device and go there now. I'm not leaving you to face this alone, Lisa protested. You're not leaving me, Jake explained as he strapped weapons and tools to his body. You're going to be my eyes and ears. The tunnel leads to where I keep my real ship. I'm going to need you to monitor communications and tell me when reinforcements arrive. Lisa looked confused. Your real ship. What's wrong with your farm truck? Jake smiled grimly. The truck is for vegetables, The ship is for war. Jake led Lisa to a hidden panel in his basement floor. Below was a narrow tunnel, carved into the rock by miners decades ago. Jake had discovered it when he bought the farm and had spent months enlarging it and installing basic life support. Follow this tunnel until you reach a large cave, Jake instructed. Inside you'll find a ship called the Night Runner. The access code is 77 Alpha Delta. Get inside and activate the communication array. I'll contact you on Channel 12. What are you going to do? Lisa asked. Something I swore I'd never do again, Jake replied. I'm going hunting. After Lisa disappeared into the tunnel, Jake activated the final defensive system in his farmhouse. Hidden charges throughout the building were designed to make it look like he had died in a massive explosion. Jake escaped through a different tunnel that led to his barn just as the charges detonated. The Kroleks saw the farmhouse explode and assumed they had killed their target. Jake used their momentary confusion to slip away into the darkness. He moved through the night like a ghost, using skills he had spent 5 years trying to forget. 20 minutes later, Jake reached the cave where he kept his real transportation. The Night Runner was a small but deadly spacecraft designed for stealth and speed. It had cost him most of his savings from his assassin days, but it was equipped with the best technology money could buy. Lisa, can you hear me? Jake said into his communication headset as the ship powered up. I'm here, Lisa's voice crackled back. Jake, there are more ships landing. I count at least 30 vessels now, and more arriving every few minutes. Good, Jake said as he launched into the night sky. The more that come here, the more I can deal with at once. Jake's plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of waiting for his enemies to come to him, he would hunt them in space where his superior ship and experience gave him the advantage. The Night Runner's stealth systems made it nearly invisible to most sensors, and Jake knew how to use asteroids and cosmic radiation to hide his movements. His first target was a group of Thurlian ships waiting in orbit above New Eden. The Thurlians were brave warriors, but they were terrible pilots. Jake approached their formation from below, using the planet's magnetic field to mask his energy signature. Lisa, I'm about to engage the Thurlian squadron, Jake reported. Monitor their communications, and tell me if they call for help. Understood, Lisa replied. Jake, be careful. There are a lot of them up there. Jake smiled coldly as he armed his weapons. There are a lot of them now. The attack was swift and brutal. Jake's ship was much smaller than the Thurlian vessels, but it was also much faster and more maneuverable. He darted between the larger ships like a fighter attacking bombers, targeting their engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The Thurlians tried to coordinate their response, but Jake had studied their tactical communications for years. He knew their standard formations and could predict their moves before they made them. Within 10 minutes, 8 Thurlian ships were destroyed or disabled. How did you do that? Lisa asked in amazement as she watched the battle on her sensors. Thurlians always attack in the same patterns, Jake explained as he moved toward his next target. They're predictable. Now I need to find something harder to keep them interested. Jake's next target was a Nexari hive ship that had just arrived in the system. The Nexari were much more dangerous than the Thurlians because they could coordinate their actions through a shared mental link. Fighting them was like fighting a single organism with multiple bodies, but Jake had encountered Nexari before, and he had learned their weakness. Their mental link made them powerful, but it also made them vulnerable to feedback attacks. Jake had modified his ship's communication system to broadcast on the same frequency the Nexari used for their telepathy. Jake approached the hive ship carefully, staying in its sensor shadow. When he was close enough, he activated his modified transmitter and sent a powerful burst of random noise directly into the Nexari mental network. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hive ship began spinning out of control as its crew writhed in mental agony. Their shared consciousness, which usually made them unbeatable, became a liability as pain and confusion spread through their entire collective. "Lisa, you're getting some interesting data streams here," Lisa reported. "It looks like every Nexari ship in the system just went dark." "Mental feedback cascade," Jake explained. "Hit one Nexari hard enough in the right way, and you can crash their entire network. They'll be unconscious for hours." Word of Jake's attacks spread quickly through the attacking fleet. Ship after ship tried to locate and destroy the Night Runner, but Jake stayed one step ahead of them. He used the asteroid belt around New Eden like a three-dimensional maze, appearing just long enough to destroy a target before vanishing back into the rocks. Jake's reputation as the Shadow had been built on his ability to appear anywhere and strike without warning. In space, with a ship designed for stealth warfare, he was even more deadly than he had been as a ground-based assassin. "Jake, I'm picking up long-range communications," Lisa reported. "It sounds like word is spreading beyond the local system. More ships are coming from all over the galaxy." "How many more?" Jake asked as he prepared to attack a Valkyrie squadron. "Hundreds," Lisa said quietly. "Maybe thousands. Every bounty hunter and mercenary in known space is heading this way." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had expected dozens of attackers, maybe a few hundred at most. But if thousands of ships were coming to New Eden, the situation had become much bigger than a simple bounty hunt. "Lisa, I need you to start monitoring news channels," Jake said. "I think someone is using this as more than just an assassination attempt." As Jake continued his deadly work in the asteroid belt, destroying ship after ship with ruthless efficiency, he began to realize that he had walked into a trap much larger than he had imagined. Someone was using the bounty on the Shadow to gather the galaxy's most dangerous criminals in one place. The question was why, and Jake had a feeling that the answer would change everything. "Lisa," Jake said as he destroyed another group of attackers, "I think we're in bigger trouble than I thought." Jake had been fighting in space for 3 days when the Galactic Council fleet arrived. Lisa watched from the cave as massive warships dropped out of hyperspace and took positions around New Eden. These were not bounty hunters or criminals. These were the official military forces of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "Jake, we have a problem," Lisa said into her communicator. "The Council fleet just arrived, and their commander is demanding your immediate surrender." Jake was hiding in an asteroid field, his ship powered down to avoid detection. Around him floated the wreckage of more than 50 ships he had destroyed over the past 3 days. The asteroid belt had become a graveyard of alien technology and broken dreams of easy money. "What's their fleet composition?" Jake asked. 15 heavy cruisers, 8 battleships, and something that looks like a command carrier," Lisa reported. "A flagship is broadcasting on all frequencies. Admiral Vexstar of the Hegemony Navy is ordering all civilian ships to withdraw from the system immediately." Jake felt his blood run cold. Admiral Vexstar was a legend in military circles, a brilliant strategist who had never lost a major battle. If the Council had sent him, they were taking this situation very seriously indeed. "Patch me into their communications," Jake said. "Are you sure that's wise?" Lisa asked. "I need to know what they want," Jake replied. A moment later, Jake heard the deep, commanding voice of Admiral Vexstar speaking in perfect English. "This is Admiral Vexstar of the Galactic Council Security Fleet. By order of the Emergency Council, this system is now under military quarantine. All civilian vessels have 1 hour to withdraw to minimum safe distance." Jake activated his own transmitter. "Admiral, this is Jake Morrison. I believe you're looking for me." There was a pause before Vexstar responded. "The Shadow. your reputation precedes you. I am Admiral Vexstar, and yes, we are here for you. The Council has decided that your continued existence poses a threat to who? Galactic stability. I've been retired for 5 years, Jake said. I grow vegetables. And in 3 days you have destroyed more ships than most pirates manage in a lifetime? Vexstar replied. The criminal underworld is in chaos. Half the galaxy's most dangerous individuals are either dead in this asteroid belt or fleeing in terror. The Council cannot allow one human to wield such disruptive power. Jake looked out at the massive fleet surrounding him and realized he was facing an impossible situation. He could probably escape if he acted quickly, but running would only postpone the inevitable. The Council would never stop hunting him now. What are you proposing, Admiral? Jake asked. Surrender yourself for trial and processing, Vexstar said. In exchange, the civilian population of New Eden will be protected, and no action will be taken against the journalist who has been documenting your activities. Jake closed his eyes and thought about Lisa, about the farmers of New Eden, about all the innocent people who would suffer if this conflict continued to escalate. The smart thing would be to run, to find another quiet world and start over. But Jake was tired of running. I have a counter-proposal, Jake said. I'll come to your flagship, but not as a prisoner. I want to discuss terms. You are in no position to negotiate, Vexstar replied. Admiral, you brought 15 ships to capture. 1 human, Jake said. That tells me you're more afraid of me than you're willing to admit. I think we can help each other. There was a long pause before Vexstar spoke again. Explain. You're not just here because of the bounty hunters I killed, Jake said. You're here because my actions have exposed how fragile galactic security really is. One retired assassin caused this much chaos in 3 days. What happens when other humans decide to follow my example? Jake could hear the uncertainty in Vexstar's voice when he replied. What are you suggesting? A demonstration, Jake said. You want to show the galaxy that humans can be controlled, that we're not the threats some people think we are. I want to show them that we're too dangerous to threaten. Maybe we can both get what we want. Go on, Vexstar said carefully. Single combat, Jake proposed. You pick your best warrior, and I'll fight them. No weapons, no technology, just natural ability against human determination. If your champion wins, I surrender peacefully. If I win, the Council leaves me alone permanently. Then what makes you think I would agree to such terms? Vexstar asked. Because you're curious, Jake said. You want to know if the stories about human combat ability are true. This is your chance to find out, and the entire galaxy will be watching. Jake could hear Vexstar discussing the proposal with his staff. Over an open channel, finally, the Admiral's voice returned. The Council has authorized me to accept your terms, with one modification. You will face not one opponent, but a series of champions representing different member species. If you defeat them all, you earn your freedom. If any of them defeats you, you surrender. How many champions? Jake asked. 7, Vexstar said. 1 from each major civilization in the Council. Jake thought about the odds. 7 alien champions, each representing the best their species had to offer in combat. It was probably a death sentence, but it was better than spending the rest of his life running from Council fleets. I accept, Jake said. But I have conditions. The fights are broadcast across the galaxy. No interference from either side. And if I win, New Eden becomes a protected world under human sovereignty. Agreed, Vexstar said after another pause. Report to our flagship in 1 hour. The trials will begin immediately. Jake powered up his ship and began flying toward the massive Council fleet. As he approached the flagship, he contacted Lisa 1. Final time. Lisa, I need you to record everything that happens next, Jake said. Whatever the outcome, People need to understand what took place here. Jake, you don't have to do this, Lisa said. You could still run. No, Jake replied. I'm tired of running. It's time to make a stand. As Jake's small ship was pulled into the flagship's docking bay, he thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. From legendary assassin to peaceful farmer to reluctant warrior, his life had taken turns he never could have predicted. But now, surrounded by the most powerful military force in the galaxy, Jake Morrison was about to discover whether a human's reputation for adaptability and determination was legend or reality. The trials were about to begin, and the entire galaxy was watching. Admiral Vextar was waiting in the docking bay as Jake stepped out of his ship. The alien commander was tall and imposing, with the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets in dozens of battles. So, Vextar said, studying Jake carefully, you are the human who has caused so much trouble. I'm just a farmer who wants to be left alone, Jake replied. Vextar smiled coldly. We shall see what you truly are when you face our champions. The galaxy is about to learn whether human legends are based in fact or fantasy. The combat arena aboard Admiral Vextar's flagship was a simple circle of metal flooring surrounded by energy barriers. Thousands of beings throughout the galaxy watched through live broadcasts as Jake Morrison stood in the center, wearing only simple clothes and carrying no weapons. Around the arena, representatives from every major civilization had gathered to witness what many believed would be the end of human exceptionalism. Citizens of the galaxy, Admiral Vextar announced, today we settle the question of human combat. Capability once and for all. The human known as the Shadow will face 7 champions representing our greatest warrior traditions. These contests will be decided by natural ability alone, with no weapons or technology permitted. Jake looked around at the alien spectators and felt strangely calm. After 20 years of killing for money and 5 years of trying to forget, he finally understood his purpose. He was not just fighting for his freedom. He was fighting to prove that humans deserved respect in a galaxy full of beings who saw them as weak newcomers. The first champion entered the arena to thunderous applause from the Thurlian delegation. Grak the Bone Crusher stood nearly 8 feet tall and weighed over 400 pounds of solid muscle. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their incredible strength and pain tolerance. Human, Grak rumbled in his deep voice, I will crush you quickly to minimize your suffering. Thank you for the consideration, Jake replied politely. The fight began with Grak charging forward like a living battering ram. Jake waited until the last possible moment, then dropped to the ground and swept the alien's legs. Grak crashed too, the floor with tremendous force, but rolled back to his feet almost immediately. For the next 10 minutes, Jake demonstrated the human art of using an opponent's strength against them. Every time Grak tried to grab him, Jake was somewhere else. Every time the alien committed to a powerful attack, Jake turned it into an opportunity to strike back. Finally, Jake managed to get behind the exhausted giant and applied a chokehold that cut off blood flow to the brain. Grak collapsed unconscious. The arena fell silent. Jake had just defeated a warrior who could lift a small vehicle over his head. Second champion was a Velkari phase dancer named Whisper Death. Her species could become partially incorporeal for short periods, making them nearly impossible to hit. She entered the arena like flowing smoke, her form shifting between solid and ghostly. Interesting, Jake said as he watched her approach. But I've fought your kind before. The battle with Whisper Death was like fighting a living shadow. She would become solid just long enough to strike and phase out before Jake could counterattack. But Jake had learned something important during his years as an assassin. Every ability had a weakness, and the Velkari weakness was predictability. Jake began moving in a complex pattern around the arena, forcing Whisper Death to follow him. As he had suspected, her phasing ability followed a rhythm based on her breathing. Once Jake identified the pattern, he began striking at the exact moments when she was forced to become solid. After several perfectly timed hits, Whisper Death collapsed from accumulated damage. The third champion was a Nexari collective warrior, essentially 5 beings sharing one mind. They attacked Jake from multiple directions simultaneously, their movements perfectly coordinated through their telepathic link. Jake had expected this and came prepared with a strategy that had nothing to do with fighting. Instead of trying to defeat 5 opponents at once, he focused on disrupting their mental connection. Jake began moving in completely random patterns, making decisions at the last possible moment to prevent the Nexari from predicting his actions. The effect was devastating. The Nexari collective depended on being able to anticipate their opponent's moves, but Jake's chaotic fighting style overloaded their shared consciousness. Their coordination broke down, and Jake was able to defeat them, one by one as they struggled to adapt to individual combat. The 4th champion was a Krolix death priest named Silent Ending. His species worshipped death itself and trained from childhood to ignore pain and fear. He entered the arena carrying ritual scars that covered his entire body, each one representing a life he had taken in combat. "Human," Silent Ending said in a voice like grinding stone, "I have killed 300 warriors in honorable combat. You will be 301. "Maybe," Jake replied, "but probably not." The fight with Silent Ending was the most difficult yet. The Krolix felt no pain and showed no mercy. He fought like a machine designed only for killing, his attacks flowing together in deadly combinations that would have overwhelmed most opponents. But Jake had something the Krolix did not expect. He fought with joy. After years of killing for money and 5 years of suppressing his nature, Jake finally felt free to use his abilities to protect something he cared about. His movements became fluid and creative, turning the fight into a deadly dance. Silent Ending was a master of death, but Jake was a master of life. Where the alien sought to destroy, Jake sought to preserve. In the end, it was Jake's refusal to give up, his essential humanity, that won the fight. He managed to trip the Krolix and pin him in a position where he could not use his superior strength. The 5th champion was a Zephyrian Blademaster named Cutting Wind. Even without weapons, his hands had been surgically modified with retractable bone claws that could cut through metal. He entered the arena moving like a predatory cat, his claws extending and retracting as he tested their sharpness. "You killed my pack brother Krell Thick," Cutting Wind said. "Today I claim vengeance." "Your pack brother threatened innocent people," Jake replied. "I don't apologize for stopping him." The battle with Cutting Wind was a test of speed versus skill. The Zephyrian was incredibly fast, his claws leaving trails of sparks as they struck the metal floor where Jake had been standing moments before. But Jake had 20 years of experience fighting opponents with natural weapons. Jake used the arena itself as a weapon, bouncing off walls and barriers to change direction in mid-air. He grabbed loose cables and used them to swing away from Cutting Wind's attacks. Most importantly, he waited for the perfect moment to strike. When Cutting Wind overextended himself during a particularly aggressive attack, Jake grabbed the alien's wrist and used a pressure point technique to temporarily paralyze his arm. With one set of claws disabled, Jake was able to get close enough to apply another chokehold. The 6th champion was Admiral Vextar himself. The crowd gasped as the fleet commander entered the arena, his military bearing unmistakable even without his uniform. "I have commanded fleets in 47 major battles," Vextar announced. "I am a master strategist and a warrior trained in 12 different combat disciplines. Human, you have impressed me, but this ends now." "We'll see," Jake said respectfully. Fighting Admiral Vextar was like playing chess with fists. Every move the alien made was part of a larger strategy designed to corner Jake and eliminate his options. Vexstar was not as strong as some of the other champions, but he was incredibly intelligent and experienced. For 20 minutes, they fought a careful battle of positioning and timing. Vexstar tried to force Jake into disadvantageous positions, while Jake looked for openings in the Admiral's defense. It was a battle of minds as much as bodies. In the end, Jake won through pure human stubbornness. When Vexstar's careful strategy had Jake cornered with no apparent escape, Jake did something completely illogical. He threw himself directly at the Admiral's strongest attack, accepting injury in order to get close enough for a final strike. The move was so unexpected and seemingly suicidal that Vexstar hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough for Jake to land a knockout blow. As Admiral Vexstar fell unconscious, the arena erupted in chaos. Jake had defeated 6 of the galaxy's greatest champions, representatives of the most powerful warrior cultures in known space. But there was still one more. The 7th champion was not what anyone expected. A small, elderly human woman entered the arena walking with a cane. She looked to be in her 70s, with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Hello, Jake," she said in a voice that made his blood freeze. "It's been a long time." Jake stared at the woman in shock. "Helen Murphy, I thought you were dead." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Helen replied with a smile. "I've been working for the Council as a special advisor on human affairs. When they decided to test you, I volunteered to be the final challenge." Helen Murphy had been Jake's trainer when he first became an assassin. She was the person who had taught him everything he knew about combat, infiltration, and survival. She was also the closest thing to a mother he had ever known. "I can't fight you," Jake said. "You have to," Helen replied. The terms were clear. 7 champions, I'm number 7. "Helen, I won't hurt you." "Then you'll lose," she said simply, "and spend the rest of your life running from council fleets." The fight between Jake and Helen was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved together like dancers who had practiced the same routine for decades. Every attack Jake made, Helen countered with perfect timing. Every strategy he tried, she had an answer for. But as the fight continued, something strange happened. Helen began teaching Jake even as they fought, correcting his form and pointing out weaknesses in his technique.